They left me to die. Now the world knows the truth. Before we begin the story, take a moment to support us by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Your support means the world to our channel and helps us spread more shocking true stories to light. Now, let's get started. My parents and sister were buzzing with excitement, their suitcases lined up by the door as they prepared for their long-awaited trip to France. Meanwhile, I lay in bed, my body burning with fever, every breath a struggle. My vision blurred as I reached out weakly. "Mom, please take me to the hospital," I whispered, my voice barely more than a breath. For a moment, my mother, Helen, glanced in my direction. A fleeting expression of concern crossed her face before she let out a light laugh. "We're leaving for France, Olivia. You can figure out yourself," she said, shaking her head as if I was being dramatic. Beside her, my younger sister, Lindsay, smirked. She had her phone in one hand, probably recording another one of her social media updates. "Don't ruin our trip, okay? Bye-bye," she said playfully, her voice dripping with amusement. My father, Charles, stood by the door, checking his watch impatiently. "Taxi's here," he called out. I reached out toward them, my fingers trembling, but before I could say another word, the door swung shut. Their laughter echoed in the hallway as they rolled their suitcases outside. Then silence. I barely had time to process what had happened before my vision darkened, and everything faded into nothingness. Days lost in darkness. The house was eerily quiet, broken only by the slow, rhythmic ticking of the clock. I didn't know how much time had passed. My body was heavy, drenched in sweat, yet I shivered violently. The fever had tightened its grip on me, making even the simplest movements impossible. I could barely breathe. Each inhale felt like a blade slicing through my chest. Somewhere in the haze of my fading consciousness, I spotted my phone sitting on the coffee table, just a few feet away. So close, yet impossibly far. I tried to move. My fingers twitched. My body refused to cooperate. I wanted to call for help, but my throat was so dry, my voice so weak, that even the sound of my own breathing barely reached my ears. Was this how it ended? Alone? Forgotten? Through the dim light streaming in from the window, memories flickered through my mind. Nights spent caring for Lindsay when she was sick, the birthday cakes I made for Mom, the late nights I worked to keep Dad's company afloat. And yet, when I needed them most, they left me behind. A bitter realization sank into my chest, heavier than the fever itself. I wasn't a daughter to them. I was just a convenience, someone to handle responsibilities they didn't want to deal with. A tear slipped down my burning cheek. Then, everything went black again. A lifeline in the silence. 2 days passed. The house remained deathly still, untouched by the usual warmth of a family's presence. No footsteps, no laughter, no voices, just the faint hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of the wooden floors. Then a sound. Ding-dong. The doorbell rang, breaking the eerie quiet. A moment later, the front door unlocked, followed by cautious footsteps echoing down the hallway. "Olivia, are you home?" It was Jessica, my best friend, my only friend. I wanted to call out to tell her I was here, but my lips barely moved. My voice had been stolen by the fever. Jessica stepped into the living room, and then she saw me. A sharp gasp cut through the air. "Olivia!" I felt her arms wrap around me, shaking me lightly, panic in her voice. "Hang in there. I'm calling an ambulance." Her words barely registered. The world around me had become a muffled blur, like I was underwater. The next thing I knew, there was the distant sound of sirens. Bright lights. The sensation of being lifted. The cold bite of an oxygen mask against my face. And then, darkness once more. Waking up to betrayal. A steady beeping sound pulled me from the darkness. My eyelids felt impossibly heavy, but I forced them open, blinking against the bright, white lights above me. Where am I? The sterile scent of antiseptic filled my nose. Machines surrounded me, their soft hum filling the quiet room. And 4-line was taped to my arm. An oxygen mask rested over my nose and mouth. The hospital. A blurry figure moved nearby. "Olivia." "Jessica." Relief spread across her face as she leaned in closer, gripping my hand. "You're awake," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Thank God." I tried to speak, but my throat burned, and only a hoarse whisper came out. "My family—" Jessica's expression darkened. She hesitated. "They're still in France," she admitted. "I've been trying to reach them, but—" She trailed off, biting her lip. I closed my eyes, swallowing down the lump in my throat. Of course, they hadn't come back. Jessica hesitated again, then took out her phone. "Olivia, I did something, and I hope you're not mad, but—" She turned the screen toward me. My heart stuttered. There on her social media was a photo of me in the hospital bed, pale, unconscious, hooked up to machines. Below it, a caption: "Left behind. Abandoned. Some people don't deserve the title of family." I stared at the screen, my pulse pounding. The post had thousands of likes and even more comments. People were furious. Strangers, people from our town. Everyone was talking about it. Jessica bit her lip. "I know I should have asked first, but Olivia, what they did to you was cruel. The world needed to see it." I didn't know how to feel. Anger? Sadness? I just felt empty. Jessica squeezed my hand. "People are furious, Olivia. Your family's being called out. Even the news is picking up the story." "The news?" I turned my head toward the small TV in the corner of the room. A reporter was speaking, and at the bottom of the screen, the headline sent a chill down my spine. "Local insurance family under fire. Daughter left behind during medical crisis." My father's company, my mother's reputation, Lindsay's career, everything was crumbling. And for the first time, they were finally facing the consequences. The world knows. The hospital room felt colder than before. The weight of what Jessica had done pressed down on me, yet I couldn't bring myself to be angry. For the first time, my family's actions weren't being brushed aside. The world saw the truth. Jessica scrolled through the comments on her phone, her eyebrows furrowed. "People are furious," she murmured. "Everyone in town is talking about it. Some of her dad's clients are canceling their policies. Your mom's social media is filled with hate comments. And Lindsay," I glanced at her. "What about her?" Jessica sighed. "She's losing sponsors. Fashion brands are cutting ties with her. Nobody wants to be associated with someone who abandoned their sick sister." I let that sink in. For years, I had been the one in the background, the one holding things together, making sacrifices while they chased their dreams. But now they were finally feeling what it was like to be discarded. The hospital door creaked open, breaking my thoughts. A woman stepped in, her silver hair neatly styled, her presence carrying an old-fashioned elegance. "Grandma." My voice came out hoarse, barely above a whisper. Tears welled in my grandmother Elizabeth's eyes as she hurried to my bedside. "Oh, my sweet girl." Her hands, warm and comforting, cupped my face as she studied me with worry. "I came as soon as I heard. I can't believe they—" She trailed off, her voice trembling with restrained anger. She turned to Jessica. "Thank you for calling me." Jessica nodded. She was alone, Mrs. Elizabeth. I couldn't just stand by and do nothing. My grandmother's gaze softened. "You did the right thing." She turned back to me, brushing damp hair from my forehead. "I've been calling your mother, but she won't answer. She knows what she's done." Her voice wavered, but her expression hardened. "Leaving you in this state. It's unforgivable." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Do you think they'll come back?" Elizabeth sighed. "They'll have to. The whole town is against them now. And without you, Charles's company is falling apart." I looked away, staring at the ceiling. So that's what it took. Public humiliation. A ruined reputation. Not love. Not regret. Just consequences. Elizabeth gently squeezed my hand. "No matter what happens next, Olivia, you don't have to go back to them. You have me. You'll always have me." For the first time in years, I felt something warm bloom in my chest. A sense of belonging. The fall of the family. Paris was supposed to be a dream come true for them. Instead, it was turning into a nightmare. Lindsay scrolled through her phone at a cafe after a fashion show, her hands trembling as she read the flood of hateful comments. "Disgusting. How could you abandon your own sister? I used to admire you, but now? You're just selfish trash." Her face paled. Her brand deals were disappearing one by one, and her inbox was full of messages from PR managers advising her to lay low. "Mom," she whispered, shoving her phone toward Helen. "Something's happening." Helen took the phone, her expression shifting from mild annoyance to complete horror as she read the news headlines. Local insurance, family abandons daughter in critical condition. Break insurance, losing clients after cruel family scandal. Olivia Breakin, left for dead by her own family, fights for her life in the hospital. The color drained from her face. No, this can't be happening. Charles, who had been checking business emails, suddenly stiffened. His phone had dozens of missed calls from clients, and nearly every single voicemail was an angry cancellation. His jaw clenched. "We need to go back. Now." Lindsay's eyes widened. "What? But we don't have a choice." Charles snapped. "If we don't fix this, our entire business is gone." Helen swallowed hard, panic flashing her eyes. The luxurious trip they had been so excited for now felt meaningless. They had to go home. Back at the hospital, I lay in bed, feeling stronger than before, but still exhausted. My fever had dropped, but my body was weak, and my mind was clouded with exhaustion. Jessica had stayed by my side, bringing me food, helping me sit up, and keeping me updated on everything. My grandmother never left my bedside, her presence a quiet source of comfort. But my family? Not a single word from them. Not until now. The hospital room door suddenly creaked open. I turned my head slowly, my heart pounding. Standing in the doorway, looking utterly broken, were my parents and sister. They were nothing like the people who had left for Paris. Charles looked exhausted, his once confident posture replaced by uncertainty. Helen's makeup was smudged, her usual perfect composure shaken. Lindsay's eyes were red, as if she had been crying. For the first time, they looked powerless. Grandma Elizabeth straightened in her chair, her sharp gaze landing on them. "So," she said, her voice cold, "you finally decided to show up. Too little, too late." A heavy silence filled the hospital room. For the first time, my parents and sister weren't standing tall with their usual confidence. They looked smaller, fragile, even guilty. Charles took a hesitant step forward. "Olivia, we came back as soon as we heard." Grandma Elizabeth scoffed. "Oh, as soon as you heard." She crossed her arms. "So, it wasn't when you left your sick daughter behind. Not when she collapsed alone in your house. Not even when she was rushed to the hospital. Only when the world found out." Helen flinched at the words. Lindsay looked down at the floor. I stayed quiet. I didn't even know what to say. Charles swallowed hard. I know we made a mistake. A terrible one. But we..." Elizabeth cut him off. "You didn't just make a mistake, Charles. You abandoned your daughter." Lindsay suddenly stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. "Olivia, I'm sorry," she cried, her voice cracking. "I swear I never thought. I didn't mean..." "You told me not to ruin your trip," I said softly. Lindsay's face crumpled, as if the weight of her own words had just hit her. "I was selfish," she admitted through quiet sobs. "I was so focused on my own life, my own dreams, that I didn't even think about how much you've done for me. For all of us." She reached out, hesitated, then took my hand gently in hers. "Olivia, please. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I need you to know that I regret everything." I felt my throat tighten. The truth was, I had spent years wishing my sister would care about me the way I had cared about her. But now, I didn't know if it even mattered. Helen stepped forward next, her lips pressed tightly together. She looked at me, then at the floor, as if ashamed to even meet my eyes. "I don't know how to ask for forgiveness," she murmured. "I don't even know if I deserve to. But Olivia, I want to try." I searched her face, looking for the usual coldness, the distance she always kept between us. It wasn't there. Instead, there was something raw, something vulnerable, something I had never seen from her before. Then, Charles spoke, his voice unsteady. "I built a business and convinced myself I was taking care of my family. But in reality," he took a deep breath, "I failed you, Olivia. We all did. For the first time in my life, I saw my father cry. His shoulders shook, his hands clenched into fists, and his face crumbled under the weight of his own guilt. "You kept this family together," he whispered, "and we repaid you by leaving you behind." Tears stung my eyes. I had waited my whole life to hear those words, to be acknowledged, to be seen. But now that they were finally saying them, I wasn't sure if I could forgive them. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I turned my head toward the window, watching as the sun slowly dipped below the horizon. "You should go," I said quietly. Lindsay let out a choked sob. Helen gasped. Charles bowed his head. Elizabeth finally spoke, her voice soft but firm. "Forgiveness takes time," she said. "If it ever comes at all." I closed my eyes, exhausted. "Just go." And this time, I was the one leaving them behind, moving forward without them. Days passed. My strength was slowly returning, but the weight in my chest remained. Not from the pneumonia, that was finally getting better, but from the realization that everything had changed. For years, I had lived for my family. I had worked for them, sacrificed for them, been there for them. And when I needed them, they had left me behind without a second thought. Jessica visited me every day, bringing food and funny stories to lighten the mood. My grandmother, Elizabeth, stayed at my bedside, a steady presence in the middle of all the chaos. But my family? They were gone. Not physically. I knew they were in town. But they didn't come back after that hospital visit. Not a single call. Not a single message. Maybe they thought I'd come running back like I always did. Maybe they were waiting for me to fix things the way I always had. But this time, I wouldn't. The fallout. One afternoon, while Jessica was scrolling through her phone, she let out a low whistle. "Your dad's company is in ruins," she muttered. I looked up from my hospital bed. "What do you mean?" Jessica turned the screen toward me. News articles, social media posts, community forums. Break insurance was falling apart. People were outraged over what my family had done. Clients were pulling out their policies. Local businesses were cutting ties. And my mother? Her once polished Instagram feed was now a battlefield of angry comments. "You're a terrible mother. No amount of makeup can cover up how heartless you are. I hope Olivia never speaks to you again." As for Lindsay, her social media following had plummeted. Brand deals had vanished overnight. Jessica shook her head. They did this to themselves. I swallowed hard. A part of me should have felt satisfied. This was justice, wasn't it? But instead, all I felt was empty. Even after everything, I never wanted to destroy them. I just wanted them to care. A new beginning. A week later, I was discharged from the hospital. My grandmother brought me home, not to my parents' house, but to hers. The small, cozy house smelled like lavender and fresh bread. The moment I stepped inside, I felt something unfamiliar. Peace. For the first time in years, I wasn't surrounded by expectations. No unpaid work, no endless responsibilities, no being treated as an afterthought. I could just exist. Elizabeth placed a cup of warm tea in front of me as we sat in the living room. "What do you want to do now, Olivia?" she asked gently. I stared into the tea, watching the steam swirl. I didn't know. For so long, my life had revolved around them. Their business, their needs, their dreams. I had never once stopped to ask myself what I truly wanted. And maybe it was time to start. A family rebuilt or left behind. Months passed. Autumn arrived, painting the trees in warm shades of gold and crimson. I had settled into my new life at Grandma Elizabeth's house. A life that, for the first time, felt like my own. I was healing, not just from the illness, but from everything. No more late nights buried in paperwork for my father's company. No more being overlooked, taken for granted. I spent my days reading, walking through the quiet countryside, and breathing freely for the first time in years. Jessica visited often, bringing me updates on everything I had chosen to leave behind. "Dad's company is barely holding on," she told me one evening, sipping her tea. "He had to downsize. He's basically running it alone now." I nodded, feeling nothing. I used to believe my father's business would collapse without me, and I had been right. But that was no longer my burden to carry. "And Lindsay?" I asked. Jessica sighed. She left the fashion industry. She started working at a youth center. Apparently, she's trying to help underprivileged teens now. That surprised me. Jessica studied my face. "She wants to talk to you, you know." I exhaled slowly. "I know. Lindsay had been sending messages, not begging for forgiveness, not making excuses, just messages. Small attempts to rebuild the bridge she had burnt. And Mom? Jessica hesitated. She's changed. Ich glänzte her. She started therapy, she admitted. She even joined some local support group for mothers who struggle with emotional connection. People say she's trying. I stare at my hands, processing the words. Trying. It was more than I ever thought she would do. But was it enough? Christmas Eve, the choice. Snow fell gently outside as I stood by the window, staring at the quiet street. Tonight was Christmas Eve, and for the first time since the incident, my family had invited me over. Not demanded, not expected, just invited. I held the unopened letter my father had sent me days ago, his handwriting careful, almost hesitant. Olivia, I don't know if you'll ever forgive us. I don't expect you to, but I just want you to know that we love you, and we will keep trying to prove it. A part of me wanted to stay in the warmth of my grandmother's house, away from the people who had once left me for dead. But another part wanted to see if people could truly change. Elizabeth placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. You don't have to decide now, she said softly. Forgiveness is yours to give or not give. Either way, you are loved. I turned, looking into the eyes of the one person who had never abandoned me. Then I took a deep breath and made my choice. Epilogue. Time reveals truth. The old wristwatch my father had given me. My grandfather's watch sat on my wrist as I stepped out into the snow. The words engraved on the back stood out in the dim light. Time reveals truth. For so long, I had believed my value came from how much I could do for my family. But I had been wrong. My worth had never been tied to them. It had always been mine to begin with. And now, I was finally ready to start living for myself. No more waiting to be seen. I see myself now. And that was enough. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe for more real-life family dramas. Let me know in the comments what you think about today's story. Was it fair or totally messed up? See you in the next one.